Hello champs, first of all welcome to all of you. So in this video I am trying to cover not any new topic of a core Java playlist. I just want to complete the remaining portion of a core Java playlist, that is constructor in inheritance. In part 1 video I already covered the theory concept of a constructor, means what is the constructor and what is the use of constructor. All information in theory point of view I already covered in part 1 video. If you are not watching that video, so please go and watch that video for clearing the concept of constructor from zero to advanced. Understand? So in this video, this is a part 2 where I am trying to cover the constructor with the help of coding. How we are able to implement the constructor, how we are able to use different means what is the use of constructor in different topic of a core Java. Understand? Means interrelated topic that are related with the help of constructor are clear in this video. Okay? So all remaining portion of a core Java, not core Java, all remaining portion of constructor are clear in this video. So if you have any doubt after watching part 1 video, so I think you have doubt because coding is not only the meaning of theory, coding is practical, how we are able to actually implement that. So implementation part of a constructor are covered in this video, not only basic but advanced also. Okay, so let's start the lecture and see how we are able to implement the constructor in Java with the help of coding. So let's start the lecture. So first of all I want to clear that what I'm going to clear in this video, what are the topic of the video. So let's go and see what is the topic. So I'm just writing some points here, you are able to see. So first point that I want to cover in this video, how we implement the constructor. Okay, so first point that I want to cover, that is constructor basic implementation. Second point is types of constructor. Third point is constructor overloading. Am I able to overload the constructor or not? And if yes, then how are I able to do that? Second point that I want to cover, constructor in inheritance. What is the role of constructor in terms of inheritance? What happens when I am creating any child class or parent class, and is constructor is inherited by child class or not? If yes, then how are I able to do that? All information are covered in second point of the video. Third point I want to cover in this video, that is constructor chaining in Java. What is the meaning of constructor chaining? All information, all 3 points are covered in this video. So let's go with the first one, that is constructor basic. What is the basic implementation of a constructor? Okay, so I just want to go here. Okay, so I am just opening my VS Code, and now you are able to see here I am just creating a simple class that is coding from Mumbai, and that contain a main method. Okay, now I want to create first point of the video, that is basic implementation. What I'm writing, bro? Now for that, for understanding the use of constructor, how the constructor is working, so for that I'm just creating class A. First of all I want to clear that one thing, that is syntax. Okay, what is the syntax of constructor? So I just want to remove first that this line code. So syntax you have to understand. First of all we have to write here or public or private, whatever, means these are the access modifier we have to write. So I'm just remove all these things and write here access modifier, means public, protected, or default, or private. So these are 4 access modifier. We have to write first access modifier, then we have to write class name. I'm telling one thing in part 1 video, when I'm clearing the concept of constructor theory point of view, at that time the name of a constructor is completely same the name of a class. Okay, so we have to write class name, what is the class name of that function of the class, and then we have to write parenthesis, then we have to write curly braces for writing the code. Understand? We did not writing any type of return value because it looks like a method, but it is not a method. So we are not writing any return type of value, means this constructor return int value or default value. No, we do not have to write any type of return value. We just write the access modifier, means our constructor is public, private, or protected. And second, we have to write the name of a constructor which is same as the name of a class. Then we have to write parenthesis and then the curly braces. If you want to pass any argument, so we have to write here argument 1, then argument 2, like this, as simple as we just passing the argument in the terms of method. Okay, so this is simple syntax of a constructor. I just want to comment that. Now let's see what is the example of that. First I just want to create a class. Okay, let's assume not I'm just writing this, I'm creating my class, and M is also capital because this is the name of a class, not a method. So I'm just creating simple class that is named as a my class. Okay, and I want to create a constructor. Okay, so for that I have to write one thing, that is access modifier. So let's assume I want to create a public constructor. So I have to write public and then class name, that is my class, and then parenthesis, and then I have to write code in the curly braces. So this is a simple example of a constructor that I am writing here, means syntax here. Access modifier means public, private. We have option for writing here public, or we are able to write private, and last one is protected. If you are not writing any sheet, all these three, so by default it becomes default case. So first of all we have to write access modifier, then class name, then parenthesis, and then curly braces. In curly braces we have to write code which is which is run whenever object is created. Okay, so for example I just want to create public, so we are able to use outside the class, not only class but package also. If you're not watching the video of access modifier, what is the meaning of access modifier, so please go and watch the video after, for clearing the concept of access modifier in Java. Now I just want to take an example of that, so you're able to understand what is the actual happen whenever object is created, what happened. So I'm just creating a simple my class and creating a my class name, means I'm just creating a constructor. Okay, I have to write here like constructor. Okay, and here which is public, I want to print a message here whenever this constructor is execute, means I am constructor of my class. Okay, I'm just writing some text for printing the message. I am constructor of my class, which is contained by the my class. Okay, you are able to see here what I'm doing. I'm just creating simple class my class, and in that I am just creating a simple constructor which is default constructor, because this constructor does not take any type of argument, which is known as a default constructor. In that I'm just printing some line of message, I am constructor of my class. Now whenever I'm talking about the constructor in Java, so constructor is not, we are not going to call the constructor explicitly. Constructor is automatically called by the Java whenever we are creating the object of a particular class. So by default constructor automatically called by the Java. So I'm just creating the object of my class. Okay, you guys, what you are seeing here, I'm just creating simple my class obj new and my class, means I'm just creating a simple object obj object of my class. So now let's run the program and see what is the output of that particular program. Okay, so I'm just running the code and see the output. We have to wait for output. Okay, so output is I am my class, I am a constructor of my class. So simple and clear output is here. What happened, so I just want to close that. You are able to see I'm just creating simple my class that contain a default, not a default, that contain a public constructor, which in which I just want to print some line of message. Whenever we are creating the object of my class, that is obj, Java automatically call this particular constructor. Okay, so this is a simple or basic example of a constructor. What is the syntax of constructor? We have to write access modifier, then class name, because name of a constructor and the name of a class is completely same, then parenthesis, and writing in the parenthesis argument. If we are not writing any argument, then that becomes the default constructor, and then we have to write curly braces, same as a same method we are doing in the method, and then in curly braces we have to write line of code which is executed by the Java whenever object is created of that particular class. So example is here, I'm just creating the constructor of my class, and that contains some line of code. Whenever we are calling the whenever we are creating the object, automatically Java run this constructor. Okay, so what happened behind the scene we have to understand. Whenever we are creating the object of my class obj, so Java automatically create the constructor. Before creating the object, first they want to run the constructor of the particular class. So Java first come into my class, and that then check, is my class, is this particular class contain any constructor or not. What this they check, they are checking that, is this particular class contain any type of constructor or not. If yes, then execute that. If they are not containing any constructor in our code, in our class, then we have to run the Java default constructor. What I'm trying to say, whenever we are creating an object of particular class, so Java control comes into our class and then check if this particular class contain any constructor or not. If yes, they are containing the constructor, then execute that. If they are not containing any constructor, so please execute the Java default constructor. What is the meaning of Java default constructor? So Java default constructor is also simple constructor that contain does not any line of code, means they are not containing any line of code in its body. So whenever Java default constructor execute, at that moment of time we are not able to see any output, because the Java default constructor, they did not contain any line of code. If you want to see how what is the visibility of that, so I think, for example, if I would remove this, okay, so I just want to take the example, means how we are able to see the default constructor, means how default constructor is looks like. Okay, so it's completely looks like this, my class. Okay, and here, so this is a simple Java default constructor. Okay, it looks like similar there because this constructor does not contain any line of code. So I just want to run the program and see the output. So output is code is completely run, but no output we are able to see because constructor is not contain any line of code. So this is an example of this is the syntax of default constructor. Okay, so this is all information, basic information about constructor, and let's go for the second point. So let's see what is the second point of the video. So I just want to open the our here. So second point is types of constructor. So let's see what is the types of constructor that we are able to use that. Okay, so I'm just open my VS code. I just want to remove this, not remove, I just want to remove this. Now I have to write here types of constructor. Types of constructor. Okay, so first I just want to take a multi-line comments, so I am able to write that all these things. So first type is default constructor. Second is parameterized constructor. Okay, so there are two types of constructor in Java. We are able to use that. First one is default constructor. Second one is parameterized constructor. So let's see example one by one, both of them. I just want to first take the example of default constructor. Okay, so public void construct, not constructor, not return type. Okay, public directly I'm telling that I have to write public my name of a class, then parenthesis, then that contains some line of code. Okay, now and then we have to write example of second, that is I just want to copy paste it, save the time. Okay, now public my class, that let's assume that take any argument here like int a, not an int but string name name. Okay, so you are able to see I'm just telling giving the example of both of them. First I'm just writing the default example of syntax of default constructor. How are you able to write default constructor? Any constructor that does not take any type of argument in his body, that is known as a default constructor. And if we are taking any argument in his body, so that is known as a parameterized constructor. Okay, so I just want to write some line of code and see the output of both of them. I am not I am just want to write default constructor like this. Please not see the meaning of constructor. I just want to print here. Okay, parameterized constructor, and then I just want to name whatever you are taking. Not I just want to. Okay, just let's see what is the output of both of them. Okay, so you're able to see I'm just creating the simple two constructor. First one is example of my class, means first example of a default constructor, second example of a parameterized constructor. Okay, now what happened when I'm creating the object of my class? If, please notice, listen very carefully, very important points. Whenever we are not passing any argument during creation of an object of my class, I want to repeat, whenever we are creating object of my class and we are not passing any argument in his body in during creation of a object of my class, at that time this default constructor is going to be run. Understand? Whenever we are not passing any argument during creation of an object of a my class, at that time this default constructor is execute. If you not believe so, I just want to run that. Good. And see the output. Default constructor. Okay, means when we are not passing any argument during creation of an object, at that time this default constructor execute. If you, let's assume if I want to pass here like a month. Okay, when we are passing any argument during creation of an object of my class, at that time this parameterized constructor execute. Understand? If I want to pass here like second, then it is error. Why it is error? Because in my class, in this particular class, they did not contain any constructor that taken number two string as an argument. This is why the error. The constructor reads the error message. The constructor my class string is undefined because we are not creating any type of constructor that take the two argument. Okay, this is why this error are provided by the Java. Now I just want to pass single constructor, single string. So in that case, when we are passing any argument, that time this parameterized constructor execute. Okay, I just want to run the code again and see the output. Output here is parameterized constructor. Understand? Means when we are passing any argument which is similar as the constructor that we are creating in our program, at that time this particular parameterized constructor execute. Now what happened when we are not creating any constructor in our program? I am telling that in that case Java default constructor execute. Okay, so if we are creating any constructor in our program, what I'm saying, whenever we are creating any constructor in our program, it may be default constructor, it may be parameterized constructor, at that time Java default constructor is not execute. Understand what I'm saying? Whenever we are creating any constructor in our program, at that moment of time Java default constructor is not execute. Let's, for example, if I just want to remove that, not remove, I just want to comment this default constructor. Okay, means that constructor that not taking any argument, and in during creation of a object I not want to pass any argument. Okay, at the time error is present. What is error? Read the message. The constructor my class which does not take any argument is undefined. Means in our program there is no constructor. In simple my class there is no constructor that taken any argument. This is why we are not able to create object of a my class without passing any argument. If you want, because in that case Java default constructor is not execute. Whenever we are creating any constructor in our program, at that moment of time Java default constructor is not execute. If we are not creating any constructor in our program, at that time Java default constructor execute. So I just want to do here like this and comment off. Okay, so this is a simple basic point, means types of constructor in this part point two are covered. Means first point, that is first type, that is default constructor. Second type is parameterized constructor. And this is basic example of a default constructor example, and then this is a second example, that is parameterized constructor, and how we are able to do it. If I want to call both of them, so I just creating obj1. So during creation of obj1, we are not passing any argument, and just I want to create any other object, means obj2. In that case, I just want to pass an argument like, okay, so I'm just creating two objects, obj1, obj2. Whenever obj1 is created, at that time this default constructor execute, because Java match this constructor to this constructor, because they both the constructor, they did not taking any argument. Whenever we are creating obj2, at that time Java match this constructor to the this constructor, means parameterized constructor, and then execute the line of code contained by the parameterized constructor. So I just creating obj1, obj2, and calling the, I'm trying to call both the constructor, means default and parameterized. So I just want to run the program and see the output. What is the output of them? Output here is default constructor, and then second output is parameterized constructor. Okay, so in this case both constructor execute, means whenever we are does not passing any argument, at that time this default constructor execute. Whenever we are passing one argument, at that time this particular constructor execute. So let's go for the third point of the constructor. Now let's go. So third point is constructor overloading. What is the meaning of overloading? I am telling in the part 2 video of overloading. Means in the video of part overloading, I just covering the concept of method overloading and method overriding. Same concept are here in terms of constructor. So let's see, am I able to overload the constructor? Okay, so just I want to open my VS Code. First of all, I just want to remove all these things, and I just write here third point, means overloading constructor. Okay, and then removing all these things, and removing this example also. I just want to take a different example. I know you are able to see, sir, you are taking single example in all this case. Okay, now I just want to create a, so first we have to understand the meaning of overloading. After quick revision of overloading, then I was just want to take the example. So overloading is nothing but a same method. What I'm saying, multiple, I just want to create two or more method. The name of a method is completely same, but signature is different. Understand what is the meaning of overloading? Overloading means more than two method are present in particular class. The name of a method is completely same, but the number of argument taken by the particular method may be different, or return type may be different. Means their signature completely different, but the name of the all method is completely same. That is known as a method overloading. Okay, so let's see the example of that. I just want to create class your class, for example, not your class, but like calculate. Okay, I'm just creating calculate class, and this is small. Okay, in that I want to take the example of a calculate class. I just take the example of a method overloading. How we are able to constructor overloading, we are able to do that. For that, I just want to create a public add, not add but multiply. First, that take the two argument, int a, int b, and here I just want to print it. Okay, a into b, and because why it is error? Because error is, why it is error? This is a mistake done by me. It is very common. The name of a constructor is completely same the name of a class. So just I want to write here calculate, because I am not creating any method. I just want to create a constructor. So I have to write here calculate. So this is our first constructor, that is int taken two argument, int a, int b, and then we are able to multiply and print message. Now I just want to create another constructor, calculate, that taken int a, int b, and then int c. Then I want to print message a into b into c. Okay. Now I just want to create another constructor, int a, int b, and int c. Not c but int d, and then printing message a into b into c into d. Okay, I just want to printing some different message so we'll be able to differentiate to all of them. Argument like this. I just want to write here 3 arguments because this constructor taken 3 arguments. Oh, sorry, I have to copy paste same here and then I have to do here, not in the okay. And then I just want to paste here and here I want to write here 4 constructor, 4 argument. Means I'm just creating simple calculate class that contain the 3 constructor. First constructor that take the 2 argument int a, int b, and I just want to multiply both the numbers that are taken as an argument in first one. In second, I'm just creating a second constructor that taken the 3 numbers a, b, c, and I want to print that yes, this constructor 3 arguments constructor and multiply out result is here. And this is the third constructor which taken the 4 numbers and I just want to multiply to all of them. Okay. So this is a simple example of a calculate class and this is a simple example of method overloading. I am telling that method overloading is nothing but a name of all the method is more than 2 method is completely same, but the signature will be different. So signature means number of argument may be different or a data type may be different. So this is a signature. So int a, int b, this calculate first constructor taken 2 argument, second constructor take 3 argument, third constructor take 4 argument. Okay, and I just want to come into the main method and I want to create an object of calculate. C1 is equal to new and then calculate. Okay, so first of all, so let's see one by one. If I'm not passing any argument during creation of a constructor, then it is tell the error. The constructor calculate is undefined. Means in your class there is no constructor which take and no argument. Okay, it is undefined in your program. So for that I have to pass here 4 and 5. For example, if I am passing 4 and 5 at that time, this particular first one constructor execute. When I, for example, now I just want to create another constructor, another object. C2 is equal to new and then calculate and passing the 3 number here. Okay, so if we are passing 3 argument during creation of object C2, that time this particular second type of constructor execute. Now let's see what happened when I'm creating the third object C3 and then new keyword and then passing 4 argument. Understand? Means 8, 4, 2, 1 and removing all these things. Understand? So in first C1 object I am passing 2 argument 4 and 5. In second C2 I am passing 4, 2, 6. In third object C3 I am passing 8, 4, 2, 1. So it result is maybe like 20. It result maybe 4 into 2 into 6, 48. Okay, and here output may be 64. Okay, so now just I want to execute the program and see the output. Argument 2 argument constructor which print the message 20, 3 arguments constructor which print the message 40, and 4 argument constructor print the message 64. I just want to do here so you are able to see the proper output. Okay, so let's again I want to run the program and see the output. Output here is 2 argument print the message 20, 3 argument print the message 48, and 4 argument take the output 64. So this is a simple example of a constructor overloading. Now let's say second example of a constructor overloading. So for that I just want to remove this particular whole class and create a new class for doing that. Okay, so let's see the second example of constructor overloading. So for that I'm just creating a different class. Okay, let's assume class name like YT or YouTube. Okay, and then I just comes here and I have to create example of a method, not a method but constructor overloading. For that purpose we have to write here public YouTube means class name, and then passing the one argument as let's assume it's a string name. Okay, and then printing the message argument is, and then write the argument whatever we are contain. Okay, and then I just want to create another constructor public YouTube, and then passing a number as a integer number, and then printing the message here argument is, and I just want to write here whatever we are contain. So I'm just creating a simple YouTube class that contain the two constructor. First one is that taking the one argument as a string. Second constructor also take one argument, but the type that are taken by the second argument is an integer, and this is a string type. Okay, so Java automatically when we are creating the object of this YouTube class, at that time Java identified that whatever we are passing as an argument number into a constructor of a object, at that time it match this particular argument is an integer or a string. If integer, then call this particular constructor. If in the string, then call this particular this particular this particular constructor. Okay, so I have to write argument is, or here I just want to write string type, string argument, like string argument, and here I have to write integer argument. Okay, so let's run the code. First of all, I have to create the object of y2 YouTube class. One is equal to then I have to write YouTube, and then if I not passing any argument, then error. Now you are able to understand why it is error, because in our class there is no constructor which contain any no argument. Okay, so for that if I passing 56, if I passing 56, then Java comes in the, when we are creating the object of O1 class, YouTube class, that is O1, then compiler check this argument that I am passing during creation of a O1 object is integer or string. If in integer, then run this particular constructor. If it is a string, then run this particular constructor. So this is known as a constructor overloading. Means name of a constructor is different, but signature is name of a constructor is same, but signature is different. What is the meaning of signature? Signature means number of argument taken by both the constructor may be different, or if number of argument is same, then data type means data type of argument is different. For example, in this example, both the constructor taken only one argument, but first constructor take the argument string type, second constructor take the argument of integer type. Okay, I'm just creating one object and passing the integer value, and let's run the code and see the output. What is the output of that particular program? Output is very simple, that is integer argument is 56. Means when we are passing as a number or integer, at that time this particular integer type argument that are taken by the constructor is run. If I want to pass here, if I'm passing here string like Diwali, at that time this particular string type argument constructor is execute. Okay, so string argument is Diwali. Okay, so this is the example of constructor overloading. Understand, this is the basic example of second example of constructor overloading. So now all information about constructor in basic information are complete. Okay, so I just want to remove all these things and remove this example also. Why it is error? and let's delete this one and save the program. Now let's add second point of the topic, that is what is this, bro? Okay, now I have to write is like C for the third one. Now comes into the second point, that is constructor in inheritance. What is the role of constructor in terms of inheritance? I think you are know about the inheritance. What is the meaning of inheritance? All information about inheritance video is already created. If you're not watching, so go and watch that video. After that only you are able to understand the concept of constructor in terms of inheritance. Understand? So first of all, I just want to open VS Code and see the how are able to implement that. So I just want to write here topic, that is second point of the video, is constructor in inheritance. Okay, so for that purpose I just want to create a simple class A, and then I have to create a class B, which is a child class of class A. Okay, I'm just taking simple example of a constructor inheritance. So first of all, I have to write some notice point here. First, what is the note point here? So when I'm talking about the constructor in inheritance, what happen when you inherit any constructor? What happen? Why it is there? Because I have to write C here. So please listen carefully what I'm trying to say. Whenever we are creating any class and then creating a child class of that particular class, all the method, all the property of a parent's class are inherited by the child class. We already know this is a property of inheritance. When I'm talking about terms of property of inheritance, means all the properties, all the methods or the instance variable are inherited by the child class. But when I'm talking about the special method, that is known as a constructor, in terms of constructor, child class cannot inherit the constructor of a parent's class. So I just want to write here child class constructor does not inherit the constructor of parent's class. Okay, means child class constructor does not inherit the parent's class constructor. So this is the property of constructor in inheritance. Means what happened? Means parents class constructor is different, child class constructor is different. Parents class constructor are not inherited by the child class. Okay, so this is a simple property that I'm writing as a note in the terms of constructor in inheritance. Means child class constructor does not inherit the constructor of a parent's class. Now let's see the example. I'm just creating simple class A and simple class B extends A. In that I want to create a simple public A. Okay, and here I just want to create a constructor of child class B. So what are the points that I want to discuss in here? First point is what happen when we create the object of child class. First notice point here is I am telling that child class constructor does not inherit the parents class constructor, but question is what happen when we are creating the object of child class. So we know that child class constructor does not inherit the parents class constructor. It means child class constructor execute. But what happened actually, we have to understand. So let's complete the first question first. After that I want to take the second question. So when we are creating the object of child class, in this example, for example, I'm creating a simple object of a child class B. At that time, control comes into child class first. Okay, control comes into child class first. Constructor means when we are creating the object of child class, let's assume I'm just creating the object of child class, that is B class. Here is a child class, okay, of A class. So control comes into here in public B in this constructor, and then before executing the code of a child class constructor, please listen very carefully what I'm saying. Before running the or executing the code of a child class constructor, um, control goes from this child class constructor to parents class constructor, which is A. Means control comes from uh, constructor child class B to constructor parents class constructor, that is A. Understand? Means before executing the code of a child class constructor, control comes first into the parents class constructor and execute the code of the parents class constructor, then execute the code of a child class constructor. So this is the flow of executing the constructor in terms of inheritance. Understand what I'm trying to say? Means when we are creating the object of a child class, at that time child class constructor execute. But before executing the child class constructor, control goes from the child class constructor to the parents class constructor. After executing all the code of a parents class constructor, then these things were done by the Java itself. Okay, so after executing the parents class constructor, control comes again into the child class constructor and then execute the code of a child class constructor. So this is the normal flow of a constructor in terms of inheritance. For that, I just want to write here message. Means I just write here parents class constructor. Okay, and in child class constructor, I just want to write message same, but I just want to copy paste and then changing something in the message. I just write here child class constructor. Okay, so let's see which constructor I execute first. When I'm creating object of child class, so control comes into child class constructor. Okay, and then control after comes into this particular constructor, control goes into the parents class constructor. First Java check, is this particular class B is have any parents class? Answer is yes. This child class B have a parents class, that is A. So control goes into the child parents class constructor, that is A, and after executing this line of code, then control comes into the child class constructor B and then execute this particular line. So I just want to run the program and see the output. First output is parents class constructor, then second output is child class constructor. Understand? First output is parents class constructor, means first when you are creating the object of child class, I'm not creating the object of parents class here. Okay, when I'm just creating the parents object of parents class, at that time only parents class constructor execute. There is a no glitching with the child class constructor. What I'm saying, when I'm creating the object of parents class, at that time only parents class constructor execute, because parents class constructor Java, when checking that is this particular class A have any parents class, answer is no, so I directly execute the constructor of a parents class. But when we are creating the object of a child class, before executing the code of a child class constructor, Java check that if this particular class have any parents class or not. If yes, then execute the constructor of a parents class. After that, the control comes into the child class constructor and execute the constructor of a child class. Okay, so this is a normal flow of a constructor in terms of inheritance. Understand? So first question I think you clear, means what happened when we are creating the object of a child class. Okay, so this is the done. Now again I want to, after this line I want to write some note here. What the note you have to understand? Notice point here is Java always call the default constructor of Java always call the default constructor of parents class from child class. Understand what I'm trying to say? Java always call the parents class constructor, but that is what? It is default constructor. You know what is the meaning of default constructor? Means a constructor which does not take any argument, that is known as a default constructor. So Java automatically always call the default constructor of a parents class. For example, in this particular class, I just want to default. I just want to write here default here, like default. Okay, I just want to copy paste, and again I want to create a parameterized constructor of a child of a parents class E, and that take an argument string E. Okay, and this I want to write here parameterized like this. Okay, so child class constructor means class A have a two constructor. The first one is default constructor that does not take any argument. Second is uh, constructor that take a parameterized constructor that take a one argument. And okay, whenever we are creating object of child class, at that moment of time, Java always call the, this is a notice point here, Java always call the default constructor of a parents class from the child class constructor. Means whenever we are running, executing the or creating the object of child class, so before executing the code of a child class, Java always call the parents class constructor. That is not all constructor, only default constructor called by the Java from the constructor of a child class. Means whenever control comes into the child class constructor and then asking that this particular class B have any parents class, answer is yes. So control always goes into the default constructor, that is this particular constructor. By default, means by default this particular constructor is not execute in the terms of inheritance in constructor. So I just want to run the code and see the output. Parents class default, then child class constructor. Means default constructor executed by the Java whenever, always, whenever, by default यही होता है. Means whenever we are creating the object of child class, at that moment of time, before executing the code of a child class constructor, Java itself execute the code of a parents class default constructor. Understand? So this is a notice point here is. This is a note point in terms of here. So again I have a question. How how we are execute the parameterized, how we are able to execute a parameterized constructor of parents class from child class. Understand? Means question is how we are able to execute the parameterized constructor of a parents class from the child class, because we know that Java by default always call the default constructor of a parents class. We know that. Okay, but if my requirement is I want to run this particular constructor, that is parameterized constructor. So how are we able to do that? Means my requirement is when we are creating the object of a child class, at that moment of time, my requirement is I have to call the parents class constructor, and that constructor is not by default. That constructor is parameterized constructor. So how are we able to do that? Before talking about that, before giving the answer of this particular second question, I just want to do one thing. I just want to clear one thing that is known as a, that is again I just want to write here. This is second point and this is the third question. Second point is super method, and this method looks like not a method. I have to write like this keyword and super keyword. You know, already know that meaning of a super keyword and this keyword. Okay, because I have a right meaning of super. Okay, spelling is wrong. Now super keyword and this keyword you already know that. So what is the use of super keyword in this keyword in terms of constructor? When I'm talking about constructor in inheritance, so what is the use of these two method, super method and this method? So let's see. After that I want to give the answer of this particular third question. For that I just want to remove this. Okay, now let's see what happened behind the scene. I'm telling that whenever we are creating the object of child class, at that moment of time, constructor always execute, before executing the code of a child class, control comes into parents class and execute the parents class constructor, that is default constructor. After that execute the child class constructor. We know that. But question is, what is the use of this keyword and super keyword? In the video of this and super keyword, I already tell you all the information about this and super keyword. So for quick revision, whenever we are creating parents class and child class, in child class instance variable, means when we are creating the child class, in child class I have create a method, instance member method, and after creating the object of a child class, I just want to call the instance method of a child class, At that time, that particular method, that particular child class instance member method by default contain two variable, two reference local reference variable. First one is this, second one is super. So this and super both local reference variable that are present into the child class instance member method, and these two reference variable point to the current caller object. Okay, same here in the, this is also a method, means this is not a simple method, this is constructor is a special method. Okay, so constructor is also contain two, child class constructor also contain two reference variable. First one is this, second one is super, and both point to the current caller object. Now by using this and super, we are able to call the parents class constructor. The difference between both this and super is, this is a child class type. In this example, local reference variable type is B, and super local reference variable is type is A. Okay. So by using this and super keyword, we are able to access, by using this keyword, we are able to access all members of a particular child class, and by using the super keyword, we are able to access all members of a parents class. Okay, so this is information about the quick information about this and super keyword in terms of constructor. So let's see what the use of this and super keyword when we want to run execute parameterized constructor from the child class to the parents class. So what happened when I creating the object of a child class? So let's see. First, after that, I want to give the answer of that particular question. Now, when we are creating the object of child class, constructor comes into the child class constructor and then ask that this particular constructor, what I'm saying, contain any parents means this particular child class have any parents class or not. If yes, then execute that. After that, execute this particular constructor. So by default, this super keyword is executed. This particular line is written by the Java by default in each and every child class constructor. Understand? This is the, I'm just writing parenthesis for executing the constructor of a parents class. So this is syntax of a calling the parents class constructor from the child class constructor. What I'm saying, this is the syntax of super, then parenthesis, then semicolon. So this is the syntax of calling the parents class constructor from the child class. We know that child class constructor contain two keywords, that is this and super. Both point to the current caller object. When we are creating the object of child class, at that moment of time, control comes into here, and Java automatically, when we are not writing this particular line, if I want to comment that, so Java itself writes this super keyword and does not passing any argument in this particular parenthesis. At that moment of time, Java we are not, when we are not writing super keyword like this, Java itself write the super keyword, and in parenthesis does not passing any argument, and then semicolon write. At that time, parents class, by using this syntax, Java call the parents class constructor, that is this constructor execute. Means if I want to comment off here, so I am just writing super keyword parenthesis, and then you are able to see VS Code suggests us a.a and then parenthesis, means we want to call the constructor of a parents class by using this particular syntax, means super keyword and this parenthesis. If I want to hover that, so you are able to see the message that are provided by the VS Code is a.a and then parenthesis, means we want to call the constructor of a parents class. That constructor is a default constructor because we are not passing any argument into the parenthesis. So at that time, this particular default constructor execute. So this is why this particular line, if I'm not writing in the constructor of a child class, at that moment of time, Java itself write that in the child class constructor, and after writing that, so after writing that, this particular means parents class default constructor execute. After that, child class constructor execute. Means when we are not writing super keyword like this in the child class, so Java itself write this particular line from his side, and by using this line, Java are able to call the default constructor of a parents class. So Java write this line from its side, okay, itself, and by using this line, Java able to call this particular constructor of a parents class, that is default constructor. After running the default constructor, after running this particular line, then control comes into the here. Now notice point here is this keyword, no, super keyword, whatever we are writing here, means when we Java automatically call the parents class constructor. Understand what I'm saying? Java automatically write this particular line and call the parents default parents class constructor from its side. Okay, but question is, this particular line, if I want to write or Java itself write, always write into first line of a child class constructor. Understand? Means when we are want to call the parents class constructor, or if I'm not writing this particular line from our side, so Java itself write this particular line from his side, but into the first line of a child class constructor. Means in first line it write the super keyword, and in parenthesis does not passing any argument. After that only all the code that I am writing are execute. So in first line, super keyword without any argument is written by the Java itself in first line only. If I want to write, so my if I, for example, what I'm trying to say, I just want to copy and paste here. What is this? I just want to copy here and remove from this place to this place. So there is an error. Read the message. Constructor call must be the first statement in the constructor. Understand? When we want to call the constructor of a parents class at that time by using super keyword, at that moment of time, we have to write this particular line into the first line of a constructor only. Means we have to write this particular line into first line of the child class constructor. If I am not writing, so Java itself write this particular line in first line only of a child class constructor. So this is the use of super keyword. Understand, this is a simple use of super keyword. So by using super, we are able to call the parents class constructor. If I'm not writing any line of super keyword like this, if I'm not writing calling the parents class constructor from our side, so Java itself write this particular line from its side without passing any argument. This is why the always Java execute the parents default constructor, because Java does not passing any argument into the constructor of a parents class. Understand, this is why Java always execute the parents class default constructor. Understand? Now let's see the answer of a third question. Means how we are able to execute the parameterized constructor of a parents class. For example, in this constructor I am taking some argument here. Okay, what I'm saying, for example, if I'm writing this a constructor that are present into the class C that take one argument. Okay, in super keyword Java itself write this particular line. I just want to remove this first. Okay, and I just want to save this particular program and run the code and see the output. What is the output here? I don't know. Output here is coding from Mumbai, but this is a class name. Constructor A means parents class. In class A cannot be applied to given types. Requirement string no argument, found no argument. Reason actual and formal argument list different in the length. Understand? Means when we are creating the object of child class, at that moment of time, control comes into your child class constructor and Java automatically write this particular line. Which line? Super, and without passing any argument. Java itself write this particular line from its side, and after writing this line, it control comes into class A and searching for a constructor which does not take any argument. So it does not it does not found any type of our constructor that are present into class A that take no argument. Means we are in this particular class A there is a no constructor that taken no argument. Understand? At that moment of time, this is error is occurred. So if I'm over here, implicit super constructor A, implicit. Understand what I'm saying? What is the message? Implicit super constructor A is undefined, must explicitly invoke another constructor. Understand what is the meaning of explicit? Implicit means Java implicitly means itself whenever it's calling, it always calling the default constructor without passing any argument. But it suggests us in your parents class there is a no default constructor present. So please call by using super keyword explicitly from your side and invoke the another constructor. Understand? And invoke the another constructor. So in my parents class, there is a constructor, yes, but that constructor take one argument. So we have to write here from our side, because Java always call the parents default constructor. So default constructor is not present, because this is why the reason the error is thrown by the Java. Understand what I'm saying? If I'm not writing super keyword, so Java always call the default constructor that is not present into parents class. So error is occurred. So if I want to call the particular parents class default constructor, for that I have to write super keyword with parenthesis, and in parenthesis I have to pass number of arguments same as I want. Means if I want to, in my constructor there is only one constructor that take the one argument only, so I have to pass here only one argument, like not one argument. I have to write message here my name like this. So error is gone. Understand? If I want to run this particular program and see the output, what is the output? You are able to see that parents class default, then child class constructor. First of all, I want to remove this parents class, and I just want to remove this message also, mesh constructor, and save the program. And again, I want to run this particular code and see the output. Output is parents class, then child class. Understand what is the meaning of that? Means if I want to call the parameterized constructor from our side, so we have to call, we have to explicitly call the parents class constructor. Java does not going to be done, because Java always call the default parents class constructor. If in your particular class Java default, in your particular parents class default constructor present, that time only that particular constructor execute. Means if you in your parents class there is no default constructor, so you have to call execute, you have to call the parameterized constructor from your side, and passing the same number of argument that are taken from the parents class constructor. So by explicitly we have to write super keyword and passing the argument into parenthesis. So we are by using this we are able to, if I'm over it, so you are able to see a dot a and string that name. Means by using this particular line, we are able to call the constructor parameterized constructor of a parents class. So this is how the things are happening. So let's see all the cases. Just I want to tell you all cases. First case here is means default parents constructor and default child constructor. Okay. Second case is default parents and constructor. Okay. Constructor and what I'm writing, bro, and not default means parameterized child constructor. I just want to copy paste these two, and then I want to make changes in that. So let's see. And this is the third case. This is the fourth case. In third case, default constructor, there is a parameterized constructor. And default, this is a default. Okay. And here this is a parameterized, and this is also parameterized. Okay. So there are four cases. We are able to create the constructor. We are able to, first case is default parents constructor, second and default child class constructor. So and second is default parents constructor and parameterized child constructor. Third case is parameterized parents constructor and default child constructor. Fourth case is parameterized parents constructor as well as parameterized child constructor. So let's see example of all the cases. Okay. So first I want to take the first one, that is default parents constructor and default child constructor. So for that I'm just taking taking this right like here and particular line here, parents class, and this is child class. I want to remove this particular line because why I'm removing this? If I'm not writing super keyword, so by default Java automatically call the default constructor of a parents class which is present. Okay, so this particular constructor execute. Okay, so I'm just taking example of first case, that is default parents constructor and default child constructor. So I'm just creating simple class A that contain one default constructor, and class B, which is child class of class A, that contain another default constructor. I'm just creating object of child class and does not passing any argument, so that this particular default constructor execute. Before executing this particular default constructor, Java write this particular line. Okay, by using this line they are able to call the parents default constructor. Okay, I just want to remove, I'm just comment off. Okay, so let's run the code and see the output. You know the output is completely same, means parents class and child class. Okay, output is completely same, means, so this is example of first case where parents class also contain a default constructor, child class also contain a default constructor. In that case, there is a not any type of pressure on developer to write super keyword and passing the number of argument, because Java automatically write this particular line for calling the parents class default constructor. Okay, so there is no type of forcement for the Java itself. Now taking the example of second case, that is default parents constructor, means parents class constructor contain default constructor and child class contain the parameterized constructor. For that I have to write here int a, meaning what is the meaning of that? And whenever we are creating the object of child class, so for that we have to pass the argument, because so okay, so I'm just creating the object of child class and passing the argument into child class. So this is example of second case. I want to repeat, default parents constructor and parameterized child constructor, means parents class constructor contain default constructor, child class constructor contain the parameterized constructor. So this is a child class constructor which contain the which is a parameterized constructor which contain parameter argument, and parents class constructor does not take any type of argument in his body. So this is the default constructor. I just want to run the particular program and make changes any here. Like I just want to write param. So this is the meaning of parameterized, and I just want to write here default. Okay, now let's run the code and see the output. Output is parents class default and child class param, means first execute the default parents class constructor by using automatically Java writes super keyword without passing any argument, so that Java default constructor of a parents class execute. After that, child class parameterized constructor execute. So this is a case of this is example of second case, that is default parents class constructor and parameterized child class constructor. Now let's see the third case, that is parameterized parents constructor and default child constructor. What I am trying to say, I just want to say parameterized parents constructor means parents constructor contain the parameterized constructor, but child class constructor contain the default constructor. Okay, so for that I just comes into code and just want to remove and take the another constructor, so we are able to understand. Third case is parents class constructor contain the parameterized constructor, so I'm just creating a parameterized constructor which take the argument here like string a, and printing I just want to print the message like param parents class what I'm writing where parents class, then I have to write parameterized. Okay, and then I just also want to write here name. Understand? So class A contain a parameterized constructor, and this class means child class contain a default constructor. So this is a third case. So I have to create a child class constructor which is a default constructor. Child class default. Understand why it is error? Because Java implicitly call only the default parents constructor, but in our parents constructor there is a no default constructor present. So for that I have to explicitly write super keyword and pass the number of argument. So we are able to call the parents constructor by using super keyword. Means explicitly we have to call the parents class constructor. So notice point here is I have to write this means we have to call the parents class constructor the line of code into the first line in the child class constructor. So in first line I have to write super keyword and passing the argument here like Aman. Understand what I'm saying? Means I have to write super keyword explicitly whenever we want to call the parameterized constructor of a parents class and passing the argument into its parenthesis. Now I just want to run the code and see the output. There is an error. Means why error? Because I am passing the number here. So this is why error. Because our child class constructor is default constructor, so I'm not passing any argument into the during creation of object of child class. And let's again save the program and run the code. Now let's see the output. Output here is parents class param, and this is a string that I am passing from the child class constructor by using super keyword. This name passes from our side by using super keyword, and this is a code output of a child class constructor. Okay, so this is example of third case. Means parents class constructor contain parameterized constructor, child class constructor contain default constructor. If parents class constructor does not have any default constructor, so if for the explicitly we have to write super keyword and passes a number of argument same that are taken by the constructor of a parents class. Okay, so this is example of third case. So let's see the last case, that is parameterized parents constructor and parameterized child constructor. Means parents constructor also contain the also take the parameter or argument, and child class constructor also contain the argument. So this is parents class constructor. Okay, and I just want to one thing here, and child class constructor also taken the string a comma string b, and value of a I just want to pass is here. Not a, I just want not a argument 1, argument 2 b, so you are not able to confuse here. Argument 1 passing in the constructor of a there, and I just want to write here like this, and argument 2 I just want to print. Understand what I'm doing here? Means this is example of a parameterized child constructor and parameterized parents constructor. Means parents constructor as well as the child constructor both contain the parameterized type constructor. Understand? For that I explicitly we have to call the parameterized constructor of a parents class in first line of a child class constructor and passing the number of argument that are required by the constructor of a parents class. Okay, so this is the class A that are contain the this constructor and take one argument and printing the message, and child class constructor also is a parameterized constructor that contain two argument as a string. First argument I want to pass from the child class into the parents class, and second argument I have to print use into the child class constructor. So I have to write here both argument. First one is argument 1 first string, and second string is argument 2. Okay, so no you are able to confuse after writing this line, so I just want to write here Aman, and here I just want to write Shubham. Okay. So by during creation of an object of child class I'm just calling I'm just passing two string as argument into child class constructor, that is Aman and Shubham, and first constructor and control comes here, and after first read this line and pass this one argument one into the parents class constructor and then execute this particular constructor. After that, this particular line of this remaining or rest code of a child class constructor execute. So I just want to save the program and run the program. Let's see the output. What is the output of this particular program? We have to see that. Output is parents class constructor param means parameterized constructor and output and message means argument 1 is Aman and argument 2 which is used by a child class constructor, that is Subham. Okay, so this is example of a fourth case, that is parameterized super class means parents class also contain parameterized constructor and child class also contain parameterized constructor. For using both of them we have to explicitly write super keyword. Okay, so this is the all this is all things of the all information about the second point of the video, that is constructor in inheritance, how the constructor is working. So this is the some notice point here is child class constructor does not inherit the constructor of a parents class. And again, what is the notice point here? I just want to write like this: Java always call the default constructor of a parents class from the child class. Okay, now what is the meaning of super keyword? What is the use of that? I am telling that. What is the use of this keyword? Now I want to do that. What is the use of this keyword? How we are able to execute parameterized constructor from the of a parents class from child class? Answer is done. And these are the four cases. By using these four cases, we are able to execute the different type of constructor from the child class. So now I just want to remove all these things here and go for the last one. Okay, now let's from this only. I just want to do only from this. Okay, so I just want to go from the third point of the video, that is guess what. I just want to go here into our point. So last topic of the video is constructor chaining in Java. What is the meaning of constructor chaining? First of all, we have to understand. After that only I am going to VS Code for implement that. So constructor chaining, as the name suggests, what is the meaning of chain? Chain means more than two or multiple things that are connected to each other. So this is the name as a chain. So same here, constructor chaining means a class contain multiple constructor. What I'm saying, a class contain 10 or 5 constructor. And my requirement is whenever we are creating the object of this particular class that contain 5 different type of constructor, my requirement is to execute all of them. What I'm saying, my requirement is to execute all of them, all 5 constructor, by using only when we are creating object of single object of that particular class. When we are creating single object of particular class, not only by default only one constructor execute, but if I want to execute all 5 constructor, for that purpose then this terms comes, that is known as the constructor chaining. So by using this keyword or super keyword that I'm telling in the video, by using these two keywords we are able to perform the constructor chaining. So we are able to call the different alt other constructor of a class. So this is concept known as a constructor chaining, means we are able to call another constructor from the first constructor, means we are able to call the other constructor from our constructor. This is known as a constructor chaining in Java. So let's go at the code editor and see the output, how we're able to do that. Okay, so I just want to move. Where is my VS code, bro? It's here. Okay, I just want to come here and let's see what is the how we're able to do that. So point here is constructor chaining. Okay, for that again I want to remove all these things. You already know what I'm trying to tell you in the second point. Okay, and again I want to remove this. No, I don't not remove this. I just taking that and I just example of that particular topic, that is known as a constructor chaining. So let's see what happened here. I'm just creating a simple class E which contain a string. No. First of all, I have to remove this and taking a fresh example so you're able to understand the topic of the last topic of the video. Okay, if I'm telling same example, so you are maybe confused. So I just want to create here. I just creating a class examination. Okay, not tough, only exam. Or Modi, like Modi is a class name. I do not want to create any difficult class, so I'm just taking example. Please does not take as a any type of arrogant here. Now class A, then name as a Modi, and I just want to create a constructor public Modi. Okay, and printing message here default cons means constructor, and I want to again create another constructor which take one argument, and I just want to copy this and paste it here. One argument, and again I want to create another constructor by copy paste, and that taken two argument. I just write here two argument. So I'm just, let's see the example. Now if I creating the object of child Modi class, if I am creating the object of Modi class, there is no concept of inheritance. I'm just taking separate understanding of constructor chaining in Java. Then I'm telling the concept of constructor chaining how work in terms of inheritance. So I'm just creating one object of Modi class and then creating the simple constructor without calling any argument. So when we are creating object of Modi class without passing any argument, at that moment of time only this particular constructor execute. Let's run the program and see the output. Output is default constructor. Okay, when we are passing only one argument, okay, at that moment of time, not string, I have to pass integer. When we are passing only one argument, then only this particular constructor execute. Okay, one argument constructor, understand. Now when I am passing two argument during creation of object, at that moment of time, then third one constructor execute. Let's see output. Output is two argument constructor, meaning is we are only able to call only one constructor during creation of object. Okay, we are only able to call only one constructor of particular class during creation of object. My requirement is when we are creating object of Modi class, my requirement is all these three constructor execute. My requirement is all these three constructor execute. For that purpose, I have to write some line of code by using super or this keyword. By help of these two keywords, we are able to do that. So super keyword is used in terms of inheritance. In this example, there is a note rule. There is this example of not inheritance. This is a simple example. So only this keyword is used. So by default, constructor in a class contain this local reference variable. So I'm just creating the object of Modi class and does not passing any argument. So control comes into this particular default constructor that does not take any argument in his body. Now my requirement is to run all the types of constructor. For that I have to write this keyword and passing number of argument. If I passing this keyword, write this particular line, this and passing 3 as an argument. So this particular constructor execute that taken only one argument in his body. Okay, and this particular line means calling the constructor from another constructor always present into the first line of code into the constructor, means we have to write this particular line or a super keyword by for calling the parents class constructor. All these things are happen into the first line of the constructor. So we are able to call the constructor of a from default constructor to the one single parameterized constructor. If I after that, if I want to execute the second type of, means I want to like this. If I'm writing this particular line 3 or 5, let's see if I'm writing why this is error, because let's, this is a very important point here, very important point that I comes in my mind after watching this type of error. Let's run the program. First of all, I want to run the program and see the output. output. Let's see. Error call to this must be first statement in the constructor. First of all, it tells us we are not able to call this, so we have to write only first line. So I'm just writing first line, and I just want to run the particular program. One argument constructor, then default constructor. Means what happened here? Let's see. This is our output. Okay, what happened here? When you are creating the object of a Modi class, and I'm not passing any argument in his body at that moment of time, control comes into default constructor, and in this constructor I'm writing this keyword. So we are able to call the another constructor from this particular Modi constructor, that is this single parameterized constructor. Okay, control comes into here and execute this particular line, means one argument constructor. After completing this, control comes into this line and then printing this line of code, that is default constructor. So this is a simple example of this keyword, how we're able to call from one constructor to another constructor. Now question is, I want to execute all these three constructor only at a time. So how I able to do that? If I'm writing again here, I just want to cut first of all. Now if I'm writing here this and 4,5, then error is got it. Okay, means we are not able to call multiple constructors from only one constructor. We are only able to call only one constructor from the constructor. So let's write the note. We always able to write what I'm writing, bro. We are always able to write only, not able to write, but always able to call. We always able to call only one constructor of. We are only able to call only one another constructor from one constructor. Understand? Means we are only able to call only one constructor from the another constructor. Means we are not able to call both these remaining two constructors from only single constructor. We are only able to call one constructor. Means we are only able to call one constructor. It may be my choice, this one or this one. So I just want to call this particular constructor. In this particular Modi constructor, second constructor, I just want to call this remaining constructor. Okay, so I'm just creating a simple Modi class and calling the one single argument constructor. Control comes into here in single argument constructor, and then see in this line I'm just writing this and passing 8 and 9 as an argument. So I just want to call the two argument constructor of the class. So this particular control comes into here and this particular code is execute. After that this code is execute. This particular code is execute. So this is the best example of a constructor chaining in terms of single class. Okay, so we are only able to create single object. I'm not creating multiple object, I'm just creating single object. After creating single object, we are able to call all these three constructor at the same time by using constructor chaining. By using this keyword we are able to do that. And notice point here is we have to write, means we have to call constructor from one constructor to another constructor. For that I have to write line of code into first line always. Second notice point here is we are only able to call one constructor of our same class of another class. We are only able to call only one constructor. We are not able to call from single constructor to all remaining one. We are only able to call only one constructor from the one constructor to another constructor. If I want to call to only one constructor, we are able to call that. So by using this constructor I am calling this, by using this constructor I am calling this. So let's see our output. Run the program and see the output. What is the output of the particular program? Output is, we have to wait for something. Output here is two argument constructor, one argument constructor, then default constructor. Means I'm just creating the object of default constructor, but control comes into default constructor, then goes into this particular read the line, and this then goes into the as good into this particular constructor that taken one argument. Our and control comes into here, and then C control goes into the second constructor, third constructor that contain two argument, and constructor comes into here in this particular line, and then after executing this, then execute this and execute this. So two argument constructor output first, then one argument constructor output first, second, then default constructor output third. So this is example of a constructor chaining in terms of single class. Now let's see the example of a second use of a, means how we're able to use this and super both for doing it. Okay, so I just want to give the second example of constructor chaining class A, and then I just want to create a class B which is a child class of class A. Okay, so I am just creating class A which is a parents class and class B is a child class. Let's see how constructor chaining is work in the terms of inheritance. Okay, so I'm just creating public default constructor I want to create. I'm printing the message here, default A class. Okay, and then I want to copy paste and just I want to create int A and writing here parameterized A class constructor. In child class constructor I want to copy paste both of them and writing B and here also B, and then I'm just writing here B class and then B class. So just simple output coding here is I'm just creating class A that contain two constructor. First constructor is a default constructor, second constructor is a parameterized constructor that taken only one argument, and second class that is a child class of class A that also contain two constructor. First constructor is default constructor, second constructor is parameterized constructor. So my requirement is when I want to create the object of a child class, at that moment of time all constructor that are contained by the child class, not only child class but parent class also. What I'm saying, when my requirement is when we are creating the object of a child class, at that moment of time not only all the constructor of a child class execute, but also all the constructor of a parents class is execute only one at a time when we are creating object of child class only. Okay, so for that I'm just creating the object of a child class. Okay, I am just creating the object of child class, that is obj. My requirement is to run all the constructor. Okay, so for that purpose I have to write here, I have to write here this keyword. If I'm writing this keyword, so and passing let's say 4 as an argument, so this constructor execute. Understand what happened when we are passing 4 as an argument by using this keyword? So this particular constructor execute that taken one argument, because we know that by using this keyword, by using this line of code, we are able to call the constructor of a same class. Understand, if I want to call the parameterized constructor of a default constructor of a parents class, for that I have to write here super and then this like this. But question is but point is we are not able to call multiple constructors from a single constructor. Means again I want to write note here, we are not able to use what I am writing. We are not able to use super and this constructor, this keyword into same constructor. Understand, means we are not able to use this and super both the keyword into one single constructor. Understand, means we have option, we are only able to call the parents class constructor or child class constructor, only one we are able to do that. We are not able to call both of them in the same constructor. For that, so I just want to, for from default constructor, I just want to call the first of all parameterized constructor of a child class. For that I have to write like this and passing 56 as an argument. Understand? So control comes into here. In child class, default parameterized constructor. After control comes here, Java automatically call the default constructor of a parents class. Means this constructor execute. Java automatically call this parents class, because whenever control comes here and see there is a no, we are not explicitly calling any constructor. At that time, Java itself from its side like write this particular line. Understand? Means when we are not writing any line of constructor calling code in parameterized constructor, at that time Java automatically call the parents default constructor. Okay, it is done by Java itself automatically if you're not writing that. So for understanding purpose, I just want to comment off and write that. Means after control comes into parameterized constructor of a parents class, so I just want to write super keyword for calling the parents class default constructor. Understand? So control goes into different parents class default constructor, and here I just want to call the this constructor. For that purpose I have to write this keyword, because by using this keyword we are able to call the, we are only able to access the member of a same class. So of class A I have to access the parameterized constructor of a parents class. So for that I have to write this and 46. If I hover it, so you are able to see a dot a int a, means we are able to call this particular constructor. So what is the flow of the output of the particular program? So control, when I'm creating the object of child class, okay, that time control comes into default constructor of a parents child class and then read this particular line. So by using this line, control comes into this particular constructor, because I'm writing this and 56. So by using this keyword, we are able to call the child class and the constructor. So this constructor execute, and let's read this particular line super keyword and calling the default constructor. So control goes into in this particular line, means which line? In this uh, parents default constructor, and again I am writing here this 46. So by using this keyword we are able to call the another constructor of a class A that contain, that taken one argument 46, then that time this constructor execute. So first this constructor execute, then this constructor execute, after that this constructor execute, in last this constructor execute. So let's see the output and run the code. Okay, let's see what is the output. Output here is parameterized. So let's see the example. So this is a parents class A. First line is parameterized A constructor. Okay, then default A constructor, then parameterized B constructor, then default B constructor. Okay, so this is the normal flow of a we are able to call the all types of, not only the constructor that are present in child class only, but also parents class constructor we are able to call that. So this is the concept of constructor chaining in terms of Java. So how constructor is work in terms of inheritance, how we are able to chain the constructor, means how we are able to call multiple constructor at the same time by using this method or super cube method. Okay, so if I'm, for example, if I'm just want to remove this particular line, what I'm saying, if I'm just removing this super keyword, I'm not calling, means what happens when I'm just creating object of child class and control comes into this particular default constructor and read this particular line, this a.56, then control comes into here. Okay, in this indeed I'm not writing, I'm not calling any constructor. So by default Java call the default parents class constructor by using super keyword without passing any argument. Then this particular line execute default constructor, and then I'm calling the parents parameterized constructor of a parents class A. Then this constructor execute after this line of code execute, then this line of code, then this line of code. Okay, so let's see and run the code, and output is completely same. Output is not going to be different, because now this job is done by Java. I am not calling the any constructor of a parents class from explicitly. This job is done by Java of, by writing super keyword. Means some notice point I want to summarize the video. So this is all information about constructor chaining. So notice point here is, first notice point here is, when we are creating child class of a parents class constructor, so constructor is not inherited by the child class constructor. Second point is when we are creating calling the object of a child class, when we are calling the object of a child class, at that moment of time child class constructor Java itself call the parameterized, not parameterized, parents default constructor from the child class. What I'm saying, when we are creating the object of child class, then child class constructor automatically call the default parents class constructor. After running executing the code of a parents class constructor, then child class constructor execute. So this is the second notice point. Third notice point here is we are always able to call the parameterized. We are always, not always, means we are able to call the parameterized constructor of a parents class from the child class by using super keyword and passing as some number of argument into according to requirement. Okay, but calling the constructor from one constructor to another constructor, if I want to call, so writing some line of code, I have to write in first line of the constructor, means I have to call, if I want to call another constructor from one constructor, so for that the line of code that used for calling the constructor is written into the first line only. Understand what I'm trying to say? So this is done by the our side. Now last point here is we are not able to call multiple constructors from single constructor. We are only able to call one constructor from another constructor. Means from this constructor we are only able to call this constructor. Only one single constructor we are able to call from single constructor. Understand? Now we are not able to use this keyword and super keyword in same constructor. So by using super keyword, we are able to call the parameterized constructor of a parents class. By using this keyword, we are able to call the another constructor of a same class. Understand? So this is a second use. This is the another level of use of this and super keyword in terms of constructor. Okay. So this is all information about the constructor. Now I think I am done of my task. Okay, so all points are covered till now, means how you're able to implement the constructor, what is the constructor basic, types of constructor, constructor overloading, constructor in inheritance, and constructor chaining in Java. All points are covered till now. Okay, so this is all information about constructor. I think your all types of doubt that are occurred in your mind regarding to the constructor are clear. What is the use of this keyword and super keyword, all information are covered. Okay.